Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss the BCG matrix, a short form for Boston Consulting Group Growth Share Matrix. Now, as companies grew large, they became diversified. Managers had trouble allocating resources to each of their businesses units. So this led managers to seek a method to guide them in internal resource allocation. This led to portfolio planning. So a big firm can divide its businesses into smaller groups and understand how to allocate resources for each of its small business groups. So the BCG matrix is used by a large firm to allocate businesses or plot businesses in a graph which tells them how to go about allocating resources to each of their businesses. So it can be called as a portfolio planning tool. It can be seen as a basic graph which help large companies with diversified businesses to understand each of their businesses and allocate resources efficiently. So on one side of this graph, we have relative market growth rate. In very simple terms, relative market growth rate it indicates annual growth rate of the market in which the business operates. So what is what is the growth rate of that market? So for example, a smartphone business, is it a growing business or a saturated market? For example, a smartwatch business, is it a growing growth? If the is a smartwatch market a growing market or not? So relative market growth rate is plotted in this side of the graph. So the growth rate can be low to high. On the other side, we have relative market share. This also can be plotted from high to low. What is relative market share now? It relates to the market share of the strategic business unit relative to its largest competitor in the segment. Now, I just used the word called strategic business unit. So when I said earlier in the video that the big diversified firm plots its businesses in a graph, plots its business units in a graph, it's actually a big firm divides its whole company into smaller strategic business units and then plots its graph. I have prepared a small video on what is a strategic business unit and what are its characteristics. Please feel free to click the above link to go to that video and do come back again for BCG matrix. But in very basic sense, the strategic business unit is a smaller grouped business of a larger diversified conglomerate. So this graph can be divided into 4 sections. So there can be a section or a section of the graph which is high in terms of relative market share and low in terms of relative market growth rate. This section can be called as the cash cows. So if a firm plots its strategic business unit here, this means this strategic business unit or these business units can be called as cash cows for that strategy, for that conglomerate. So these cash cows usually produce a lot of cash. That's why the word cash. And the money is used which is produced by these cash cows in other sections of the business. Cash cows are typically businesses which generate a lot of cash for the company. These are businesses which have achieved economies of scale and hence are making money for the company. So these strategic business units, if plotted here in this section, can be called as cash cows, and the money which they generate are used in other businesses. Other strategic businesses could be used in, and the money which they produce could be used in other businesses. The next section is where the relative market share is quite low and the relative market growth rate is also low. These businesses can be termed as dogs. These are low profit. These are probably loss making SBUs. If a company plots strategic business units here, these are loss making companies. The company needs to get rid of these businesses. These do not have a high potential of market growth rate. These SBUs, in whatever markets they are having their products and service offerings, do not show a potential, do not show a market growth rate which is high. Also, this particular company's SBUs, the market share in that industry, in that segment, is also very low. The next section of the graph is where the relative market share is low. The company is having less market share, but the growth potential, the growth rate is very high. These sections are called question marks. So SBUs plotted in this section are a little bit in a confused state. These requires a lot of cash now. So if cash is given to these organizations, these SBUs, if cash is poured into these SBUs, the situation might improve, because these companies might get market share in a market where there is a potential for market growth. These can become your future big SBUs. These can be your future strategic business units which do very well for you. But at this stage, their market share is low, but they are segment is these are products or service offerings in a market where the growth rate is very high. The next section is called the stars segment, where the market share of the SBU is also very high and the growth rate is also high. So these are your star performance. This is are good SBUs, but yet the company spends a lot of money in these SBUs. So eventually what big conglomerates want is their question marks. If you pour in cash and they give market share, they become your star performers. And eventually these stars, to stay in this high position, require a lot of cash. You want these stars to become cash cows, so that they constantly generate a lot of money for you. These dogs are the companies which you want to get rid of, sell it off, divest. So there can be four main strategies which big conglomerates can follow looking at this graph. So these four strategies can be very simply build. So this is building market share. So for example, in the case of question marks, the company wants to build its market share, make it a star in the future. One other strategy can be hold, where holding the present market share is very important for the companies. These are cash cows. Whatever market share they are holding very high in the market, this is generating cash to them. So for cash cows, a good strategy is holding their market share. The next strategy is harvest, where the company needs to withdraw from a business. So these can be weaker cash cows, or these can be dogs. These are weaker cash cows which the company needs to withdraw from the market. So harvesting the business would be a good idea. Harvesting the SBU would be a good idea. The last strategy is divest. So this means selling or liquidating your businesses. These are dogs. These are these SBUs which are dragging your businesses. The portfolio planning tells us this. These are the SBUs which you need to get rid of. Do not pour in more cash and make things worse. These are the companies which you need to sell, liquidate, so divest. So companies looking at this BCG matrix like this, a portfolio planning tool like this, can decide which SBUs to build, which SBUs to hold, which SBUs to harvest, and which SBUs to divest. This, in short, is an overview of the BCG matrix, which is a very popular portfolio planning tool. As usual, thanks for watching. Do give us suggestions in the comment section. Do like, share, and subscribe our videos. Thank you again.